What's the big deal about the Council of Nicaea? Hello, my name is Msgr Eric Barr, and I'm the Catholic Storyteller. And on TikTok, you hear a lot about the Council of Nicaea. Most of it is wrong. And why are people so, kind of obsessed with this very first ecumenical council of the church? Well, let's take a look at it and see. First of all, what is the Council of Nicaea? Well, back in the year 325, that's 1699 years ago, this June, the Emperor Constantine, the first Christian emperor, called this council to meet at a little town called Nicaea, which was just east of Constantinople, now Istanbul, Turkey. And it was a big deal because he asked all the bishops to come, and a lot of them did. Why did Constantine call this? Well, he called it because of a great crisis in the church over the nature of Jesus Christ. Was Jesus just a man, or was he also God? There's a big controversy there, and we can get into that sometime, but that's the reason that he called that. Now, some people think that he called the council so that he could create the Roman Catholic Church, but that's wrong. The Catholic Church had already existed for hundreds of years before Constantine. In fact, there had been 26 popes before the Emperor Constantine. Some people think Constantine called the council so that the bishops could determine what books would go into the Bible. That's not true either. The reason that Constantine called the council was to bring peace to the empire by figuring out who Jesus Christ really and truly was. Now, the big thing that comes out of the Council of Nicaea is what we call the Nicene Creed. And the reason why it's such a big deal is because it really kind of ends up being the constitution of the church. It really becomes, a sort of manifesto of what are the basic beliefs of the church. It doesn't have all the beliefs in them, but it has most of them in them. The really crucial ones, the ones we call dogmas of the faith. And the bishops basically said, if you don't believe these things, you're not Christian. And that brings us back to the time of, our present age, when we have people, especially on TikTok, but I'm sure that if it's on TikTok, it's everywhere, calling into question some of the beliefs of the creed and saying you don't need to hold them. Like, I can go on TikTok and find people that say you don't need to be baptized to be Christian. Well, that's just wrong. It's a heresy. In the Nicene Creed, it talks about there being one baptism. That has to happen. Okay? And it also defines, you know, the fact that the church exists. It also defines God as Trinity. It also defines Jesus as God. It's just a very important document. And the reason why I think it's important for us today is that you can listen to me and I can tell you what I think Jesus is, or God is, or the Trinity is, or I could say the church is this or the church is that, and you can just answer me and say, well, that's just your opinion, Monsignor Barr. I mean, you're just one man. And that is true. I'm just one guy. And so for me to have credibility, I have to be able to anchor my faith on something more than just my personal belief. And that's where the church comes in, and that's where the councils of the church come in. Well, there have been several ecumenical councils, many actually, and some of them are very, very crucial. And of course, the Council of Nicaea is probably the most crucial. In fact, all major Christian churches hold that the Nicene Creed must be believed in its entirety. But there are some evangelicals that don't believe that. And people think they can just get up and say, well, that's not what Jesus says. I read him in the Bible as saying this, or I read him in the Bible as saying that. And the thing is that you don't get to decide on your own opinion what the Catholic faith or the Christian faith is. It is the bishops who decide that. And you could say, well, I don't hold that. And then you're going to have to say, well, where does your credibility end? Where do you anchor it? And then those people say, well, I anchor it in the Bible. But no, you really don't. You anchor it in the personal interpretation of the Bible, not on the church's interpretation of the Bible. And for Christianity to work, we have found that in 2,000 years, the body of bishops under the authority of the Pope, that's the one that decides what it is that we believe as Christians, because we believe that the church, with its bishops, is guided by the Holy Spirit. And we can have confidence that what the church decides in the areas of faith and morals, and also, the Pope himself can do this in the areas of faith and morals, is what we believe. So on TikTok, when you hear people bringing up the Council of Nicaea, make sure they're saying the right things about it. And I can't believe it, because it's so easy to do this. If you're unsure, Google it, okay? It's very easy to find out about the Council of Nicaea. But the Emperor Constantine was a very smart guy, and he knew that if he could get the bishops together and get them to issue this creed, there would be peace in the empire. He was probably a little bit overzealous and over optimistic about that, but it did help, and it really fostered the unity of the church in the centuries to come. Do you know that most churches say the Nicene Creed every Sunday at Mass? That's how important it is. And maybe in the future, we could talk a little bit about why it's so important and exactly what does it actually say. But I hope this helps a little bit. And I hope that you can see that, this great council of the church is absolutely necessary for defining not only what a Christian was back 1700 years ago, but what a Christian needs to be today. If you don't hold the Nicene Creed in its entirety, you aren't Christian. That's just a basic fact, and that has existed down through the ages. So let the conversation begin. And I'm Msgr Eric Barr, the Catholic Storyteller.